California. Hey, Tom, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. You asked the question, did Republicans want to take us back to the Dark Ages?
Yo.
Absolutely, yes. And it all started with Reagan here in California.
What's your evidence?
I lived through it. My older sister started kindergarten in 1958, just before Pat Brown became governor, and she graduated high school in 1971. And then I started in 1967, kindergarten in 1967, right after Reagan became governor, and I graduated in 1980. And I didn't realize it as I was going through it, but looking back, I mean, when my sister was going to school, they had all kinds of electives like foreign languages and wood shop, auto shop, metal shop, electric shop, all these great elective classes. And also there were more sports teams for every grade level, boys and girls. And then as I went through, as I got, as it started taking effect, a lot of those programs were cut back, classes were cut back, sports teams were eliminated, schools started closing, locals, It was just clear to me. And then my nieces and nephews, they went to school like in the late 80s and 90s, and you could just see it's even worse for them. I mean, they don't have nearly as much knowledge about things that I did, and I certainly didn't have as much knowledge as my sister did.
Yeah.
So it was just, I lived through it, and they did it through the property taxes too, the Prop 13.
Yep.
But really, like you always say, it all started with Reagan.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm not as familiar with how Reagan governed. I know about the gun control law and his passing the most liberal abortion law in America and signing it enthusiastically, and then, of course, changing his tune in 1980 when he was running for president. But I can tell you, as president, he cut the nation's federal education budget by 18%. When Reagan came into office, 80% of the cost of college tuition nationwide, on average, was paid for by state government, federal government, local governments, or endowments, and 20% was tuition. And that was why, both my mom and I could go to college, go to good colleges, and fund it with a weekend job, with a part-time job, and pay for your own college, including room and board. Now, 80% of the cost of college is paid for with tuition, and only 20% is state and federal funds. And Reagan was the guy who began that trend, although it's been, successive Republican administrations have continued, and that's why we have student debt. Student debt didn't exist in the 1980s when Reagan came into office. In fact, the University of California had been free until he became governor.
Exactly. Exactly. And once again, what he carried over at the federal level, he started at the state level back in 1967.
Yep.
And
his rationale. He's on the record. I mean, he said, why should I pay for students who are protesting my policies? He called them brats. 4 days before Kent State, he said, if it takes a bloodbath, let's get on with it. And then Kent State happened. And then when, a reporter called him out on it, he accused the reporter of being a gossip monger. I mean, it was just, Reagan was a very good actor, and he played the role of president, of kind of a noble president, really, really well. We went to see the Twisters movie this weekend in the theater, which is, by the way, just a great little movie. And there was a poster for a new movie coming out called Reagan, and it looked like it's just going to be, let's, slobber over how wonderful he was. It's just, this whole effort. There was the Reagan Legacy Project after his presidency, where a bunch of right-wingers got together and threw a bunch of money into a pot and tried to get mostly government funded, but in every county in America, they wanted to have a building named after him, an airport named after him, or a statue of him put up, and they succeeded. And then their next step was to have one in every country in the world. I think they've got about half of them. So, there's been a major effort to reinvent the legacy of his presidency.